Hello and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for taking your time to join us on the iFunds annual investor call this afternoon. We are pleased to have you and would like to invite you all before I turn it over to the CEO. I would just like to remind you, as usual, kindly type your questions and comments in the chat, and we will get to them after the presentation. And in case of anything, we are here to assist. Before I turn it over to the CEO, actually, I would like to invite the team to introduce themselves. Welcome, Diana.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Diana and I'm from customer service.
And my name is Winfrida Makuru. I'm the head of marketing, brand, and communications. We'll skip the CEO for now.
My name is Ivan and I'm the funds investment analyst.
My name is Frank from Brokerage and Advisory.
Thank you. Now that you have gotten to know the team that is here with you, I would like to remind you that this session is recorded, so you will be able to get access to it on YouTube. For anyone who is unable to join, please do let them know that this session will be available. That being said, I would like to welcome Mr. Faiz Arab, the CEO of iTrust Finance, to kick off this investor call.
Okay, thank you, Winfrida. Good afternoon, everyone. Like Winfrida said, thank you so much for you guys taking this time to join us on our first annual iFunds investor call. Before I talk about how we have done and what the funds have done, the team will obviously elaborate much better on that. I would like to firstly thank every one of you in trusting with iTrust, obviously investing with us. And I'll give you a brief update on how iTrust has progressed in the year of 2025. Yeah. So a quick highlight based on what we are, who we are. So obviously, firstly, we are regulated by Capital Markets and Service Authority and Bank of Tanzania, and we are members of the Dar es Salaam Stock Exchange. We are fund managers, brokers. We do transaction advisory service, and we are lenders through our Iman and iLoans products. So in our fund management, we now have 7 funds. If you recall, the old investors who had started off with us in 2024, December, is when we launched our first 5 funds. Today, we are at 7 funds, and I will talk about the 7th fund that is going to be listed on the 28th of Jan. It's the first ever regional ETF that obviously we'll talk about more during this call. But that also comes under our umbrella of fund management. In our brokerage services, we have done close to 300+ billion in turnover. So I think we are at number 1 or at number 2 in equities trading. We have done 18+ transactions throughout the year. And we have a lending book which does Sharia-based lending, and also we do iLoans as one of our products. This is just a journey that, well, it's a long journey, and iTrust has grown over time. So as most of you all, I think right now who have joined us are quite a lot of new customers of ours. So just to give you a highlight on how Iman started and transitioned to iTrust. So in 2013, the company was formed. By the year 2021, which was when we started our first Sukuk launch, right? Throughout the years, we have done close to 11 to 12 Sukuks in the market through Iman. We rebranded ourselves between the year 2021 and 2022. Our first ever transactional advisory mandate was done with AfriPrice, now known as TPCC. TCC. No, AfriPrice. TCCIA. my confusion on those TCC and TCCLs. But AfriPrice was our first transaction. We had done a rights issue for them. And then we did one transaction with DCB Bank as well. We had held an investor call with Safaricom from Kenya. We were part transaction advisors with Samia Infrastructure Bond. We also launched last year a first ever iDollar fund, right? Which is never also done in the history of this country. We were also part of the Al Baraka Sukuk. We were lead transaction advisors and co-sponsoring brokers for the CRDB Sukuk launch. We had done the Stawi bond as well with TCB Bank. And the big highlight for last year, obviously, was the equity raising that we did for Tanga Cement rights issue, which was at 204 billion Tanzanian shillings, and it was fully subscribed. So this is in a nutshell what iTrust has done in the past years. Again, this is for the new subscribers and new customers of iTrust. But also, I want to thank all these investors. All this success has come from the investments that you are doing with iTrust, right? That has given this growth. So obviously, our priority is to safeguard your investments, right? Obviously, through proper governance structures and also doing diligent investments in the market. So I think I will now hand over to Azan to take us through how the funds have performed in the last year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Faith. I will quickly take you through the performances of all the funds for the year 2025. Like Faith says, this is our first full annual year. With that being said, iDollar happens to be one of the funds that we launched during 2025. To kick things off, iDollar started with an AUM of about $6 million, and it's currently sitting at an AUM of $13.2 million, which is roughly a growth of 115% since its inception. During that period, the net asset value, which is the price per unit, has grown from the 100 shillings that it was IPO'd at to 102.1568, which is yielding a 2.16% return. With that being said, if that performance continues, you're looking at an annualized return of 5.36%. iDollar happens to be one of those investments that's invested in the Al Baraka Sukuk, which iTrust was co-sponsors with in the transaction, right? Our second fund is iCash. iCash had a full year of performance. So during the year, it did 11.94%, and it grew to about 112.8278 shillings per unit. The assets under management grew by about 168% to 35.3 billion shillings. iCash happens to be a money market fund. It invests in treasury bonds. As you can see, 70% allocated to treasury bonds, 26.8% to corporate bonds. These are essentially, it invests in long-term treasury bonds. So you're looking at between 10 to 25 years, and a certain portion towards high-quality corporate bonds as well, which you can see according to the allocation, 15.13 is allocated to corporate bonds. iIncome Fund is a monthly payout fund, so ideal for somebody who's looking for retirement investment. The fund has done 13.25% in 2025, closing the year with a net asset value of 114.2905. The assets under management grew by about 40% to 16.35 billion shillings. Our fourth fund is iSafe Fund. iSafe Fund, like iIncome Fund, is a bond fund. It invests primarily in long-term treasury bonds, spanning 20 to 25 years, and a certain portion in high-quality corporate bonds as well. But as you can see, majority of the investments are in treasury bonds, which is 89.7% of the fund. The fund performed at 13.3% during the year 2025, closing the year with a unit price of 113.8719. The assets under management grew tremendously as well, by 156% to just over 10 billion shillings. Moving on to our balanced funds. Our first balanced fund is Iman Fund. Happens to be a highlight performer. As you can see, that the fund has done 37.97%. That's technically 38% in 2025, right? Also, the assets under management grew significantly by 175%, just under 15 billion shillings. Iman happens to be a Sharia compliant investment, so it invests in the equities that are Sharia compliant, such as TPCC, otherwise known as Twiga Cement, and a certain portion in Sukuks, one of them being the Al Baraka Sukuk that was issued this year. Our final and our biggest baby of the year is iGrowth Fund. iGrowth Fund happened to be the best performing fund in all of Tanzania and by large in East Africa as well. The fund performed at 45.13% during the year of 2025, closing the unit price at 145.7909. As you can see, the performance was significantly great, and that is translated in the asset growth as well. iGrowth's asset under management grew by a staggering 440% during the year, crossing an asset management of about 97 billion shillings. iGrowth primarily invests in blue chip stocks on the Dar es Salaam Stock Exchange, such as NMB, and it also has a certain portion in treasury bonds as well. Yes. Just for a quick update, these are all those numbers that you saw were end of year numbers. This is just a quick performance update between 31st December to 21st January. iCash has grown to 113.5673. iIncome has grown to 115.0722. iGrowth, which happens to continue the staggering performance, has crossed 160.1608, which translates to 60.16% since inception returns. Iman Fund continues to grow as well, closing the NAV at 138.6698. iSave at 114.6922. And last but not least, our dollar fund, which closed at 102.4739. With that being said, that is it for our performance update. I will hand over to Frank, who will take you through our ETF.
Thank you, Azan. So our ETF, this is our seventh fund that was launched last year. And we finalized the IPO in December last year. We had a target of raising 10 billion and we managed to raise 54 billion. The fund will be an exchange traded fund. That means it will be listed on the Dar es Salaam Stock Exchange and it covers across 4 different markets. So there will be some stocks that will be acquired from Tanzania. There will be stocks that will be bought from Kenya, Uganda, and Rwanda. It will start trading and it will be listed on 28th of January this month. And that's it. Thank you. Oh, and let me hand over to Winnie.
Yeah, thank you, Frank. Before we get into the questions, we understand that the ETF will be listed on the 28th of January, or rather next Wednesday. Can you just get into a bit of details on what exactly that means and what that means for iTrust as brokers and for our clients?
So the ETF was closed in December, and we got CMSA approval. And upon the approval from CMSA, we now need to open a window for people who are not successful in buying it during the IPO to buy it in the secondary market. That means from 28th of January, whoever missed the window of buying it during the IPO will now have the opportunity to buy it in the secondary market at the prevailing market prices on the Dar es Salaam Stock Exchange, buying it from people who had bought it from the IPO.
Thank you. So for anyone who missed the window for the IPO, we welcome you from the 28th. I Trust as your broker is ready to serve you. That being said, before I open it up, Faith, do you have any remarks?
I think there is a lot of questions around the ETF and how the listing and all will happen. So we, as I think Frank said, we'll be listing it on the 28th. Once the listing has been done, as per now, you can now actually buy this ETF through any of the brokers, preferably iTrust, and you can buy the ETF from the exchange and from us, as like any other stock that has been listed on the Dar es Salaam Stock Exchange. So bear with us, especially the investors who have already invested in the ETF. We are almost at the end. We are almost there to ring the bell. So a few more days and we will have completed this task.
Yes. That being said, I would like to now open up the floor to the questions. We have a number of them in the chat. Please keep them coming. This is your opportunity as investors to be able to ask as many questions as possible. Where you need clarification, the team is always here for you. Starting us off with the questions, we have a couple of questions on the iDollar fund. The first one is, what was iDollar percentage return? The second one is, can we have an example of how the iDollar fund works? And then the other one is, where does iDollar fund, or rather, where has the iDollar fund invested in? Azan, can you just give a bit of a breakdown on how the iDollar fund works and where it's been invested together with the return?
Yes, sure. So iDollar is primarily a dollar-denominated fund. So all its assets are held in dollar terms. It invests in corporate bonds, the likes of CRDB's Al Baraka Sukuk, as well as the Zanzibar Sukuk, which also had a dollar tranche. Other than that, it also invests in fixed deposits at various banks as well. So majoritively, all the investments are high-yielding dollar assets. As far as the returns are concerned, you're looking at a returns between 5.2 to 5.5%, net of fees and taxes. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Azan. Okay, we have another question starting with iGrowth. If you say for iGrowth return was over 60%, does it mean that the investor gets that return in a year?
So essentially, it has done 60% since inception. iGrowth Fund was launched on 3rd of December 2024, where the unit price during the IPO was 100 shillings. When we say that the price of iGrowth's unit, the initial unit that was offered at 100 is 160 shillings as of yesterday, which means you're looking at about 14 months of returns, which translate to 60% returns. So it's just done 60% in the last 14 months.
Okay. Thank you, Azan. I would just like to remind our investors that we have the Kiswahili session coming up at 5. So you can stay on during the English session. And then if you'd like to ask questions in Kiswahili, you can proceed when we start the Kiswahili session at 5. There is a question on the entrance and exit charges in the fund. Azan, can you just walk us through how the charges work for exit fees?
Yes. So essentially, none of our funds have any entry fees, and none of the money market funds have an exit fee as well. Exit fees are for investors to not feel burden of any exits. So essentially, whatever exit fee is charged is given back to the fund to compensate the rest of the investors for any charges that the fund may have incurred during that exit process, right? So how the exit fee is charged is we take 1% of the the price that you'll be exiting at. So say, for example, iGrowth yesterday closed at 160 point, let's say 160, for example, right? So what the exit fee would be was 1% of that 160 price, right? Which is 1.6 shillings. So the price you'll be buying back will be 1.6 shillings less than 160 shillings.
Okay, thank you. Let's move to iIncome. Does iIncome provide monthly income, and what is the annual rate?
Yes, so iIncome pays out every month. It earns about 13 to 13.5% annual returns. If you look at it on a monthly basis, it returns roughly 1.1% per month. So when the fund makes 1.1% per month, it pays out 85 to 90% back to investors who have invested in that fund during that whole month.
Okay. We have another question for iGrowth. 2025 DSE market experienced exponential growth following regulation change with conservative forecasting. What possible range of performance is expected in iGrowth fund? What strategy or approach is used to ensure maximum returns in iGrowth, of course, considering the risk? We see that we have a lot of people who are interested in the iGrowth fund. So can you give our investors a bit of insight on how 2026 is looking like after 2025?
Okay, so iGrowth Fund, because it invests in the stock market, obviously it has a certain element of volatility in its making, right? What I can assure you is that we seem to have a very conservative approach towards how we invest, right? So we have a dedicated research team that spends their hours at iTrust researching all the companies that we're investing in. Essentially, what we do is every time there's a company releases their results, so every quarter, we're on top of those returns and we're on top of those annual statements. We're analyzing those numbers to ensure that the investments that we've made are the right investments for the growth potential and taking into account any risk that could be associated with it. With that being said, obviously we have a research team that obviously looks at the valuations of these companies, and we don't expose ourselves to companies that we believe are overvalued, which probably a lot of companies would be in the current market situation and the changes in the market rules.
Okay, thank you. There was a question with regards to where we publish all of this information. I would just like to remind you that if you visit our website, www.itrust.co.tz, when you go to our services, you go to iFunds, you'll be able to see all of this information on all of these funds. We provide monthly fact sheets together with daily NAVs that are published on the website. So you'll be able to access all of this information on a daily and monthly basis as we go. All right, I'll just like to remind you, please continue bringing the questions and we will respond to them as we go. Okay, so we have people who I think have not invested in the ETF. Can you give us a brief on the iTrust East African Community Large Cap ETF, where some of its holdings will be, and what was the initial selling price so that they can look forward to it once it comes into the market?
Okay, so the ETF is, like Frank said, it's an exchange traded fund. So essentially it works like most mutual funds, like you saw iGrowth, iCash, iDollar. They all work as a fund, right? So they all pool money from investors and invest it on their behalf. Each fund has a tailored approach towards its investment. The ETF is structured in a way that it's fully exposed to the stock market, right? So it invests in the Dar es Salaam Stock Exchange, the Nairobi Stock Exchange, the Ugandan Stock Exchange, and the Rwandan Stock Exchange. To begin with, the fund is investing in 14 different companies listed on these exchanges, and it has a certain allocation towards each stock that it's investing in. The breakdown of our ETF structure is on our website. You can feel free to go to our website, download our prospectus, and in the prospectus, you'll see the asset allocation of the ETF. But just to give you an overview, it invests in companies like Twiga Cement, Tanga Cement, NMB, CRDB, Vodacom, and TCC for the Tanzanian market. For the Kenyan market, we have the likes of KCB, Safaricom, Jubilee Holdings. We have BAT. We also have Uganda, MTN Uganda, and Stanbic Uganda. And for Rwanda, we also have Bank of Kigali.
Thank you, Azan. So for people who have never invested during an IPO, what would you say are the advantages of investing during IPO over buying, for example, the ETF once it's listed in the DSE?
So essentially, the advantage for an IPO is obviously firstly cost. When you're buying it at the IPO, you're buying it at cost. So there's no cost associated to it. So that unit that you're paying will be exactly 1,000 shillings. If you buy it in the secondary market, there is a certain brokerage commissions and DSC commissions. There's a whole regulatory commissions that are associated with it. So it's slightly higher cost, of course. Also, in terms of tracking performance, if you start at 1,000, it's very easy to track your performance returns, as opposed to coming in at 1,015 or 1,020.
Thank you, Azan. Another question goes, some holdings in the ETF, such as TCC, are relatively illiquid. How will the fund manager and authorized participants mitigate the associated liquidity risk?
Okay, so as far as liquidity is concerned, like we mentioned earlier, there has been changes in DSE regulations, which has made liquidity for counters like TCC, TBL, Vodacom to be more liquid and more available and readily available for buyers and sellers in the market. So as far as liquidity is concerned, that is something that we're looking into as well, and we're managing. But aside from that, also DSE has taken measures to make liquidity more better in the market for everyone.
Thank you. Staying on the ETF, during IPO, it raised a substantial amount. For those who aren't aware, 540% oversubscription. From what was expected, will this influence the market price per share when it is listed, or will it depend on the market trend? What can we say on that?
Okay, so the fact that it was subscribed is just proof that the product was a very welcoming product into the market. As far as oversubscription was concerned, we have allocated all the oversubscribed amounts, which means every single unit holder that invested during the IPO has been allotted the units. Those units will now be listed on the stock exchange under those unit holders, and it's readily available to trade on the secondary market. As far as the pricing on the secondary market is concerned, every single day we will be publishing our net asset value. With that being said, the secondary market does have an element of demand and supply. So the price may slightly deviate from the true value, the net asset value that we'll be publishing. But just so you know that every single day on our website, we will be publishing the net asset value. And on the secondary market, you may want to pay a premium for it, depending on how you feel the portfolio is, or how you see the performance being of the portfolio, of course.
Thank you, Azan. Just clarify, because you've spoken about the net asset value of the ETF. We have a question that can we expect the NAV of the underlying assets in the ETF to be published? You have mentioned that they will be published on our website. Can we expect it to be announced in tandem with the listing date?
Yes. So on the listing date, we will have a portfolio allocation. So you'll see exactly how much was purchased during that investment period. And you will have an exact net asset value upon listing, right? So when we're listing, the day we're listing, you will have the previous day's true value so that when it's open for sale, you know exactly what the underlying assets are worth.
Thank you, Hassan. And then going back to iIncome, we have a question. Is there an option of reinvesting monthly payouts?
Okay, so like I said, we have two bond funds. We have one that is iIncome, which is the distribution. We also have iSave fund. So iSave fund is essentially the same as iIncome without the distribution. So if you were to not to opt out of the distribution, I would probably recommend that you go for iSave, which has a higher compounding effect because everything is reinvested, right? So yeah, my recommendation is you would go for something like iSave.
Okay. We have a few questions regarding how exactly the funds work in terms of management fees. How is it charged? When is it charged? Can you break that down to us? And then we'll just do a quick example of if someone is withdrawing, how exactly the 1% exit fee for those funds works. Just give us a practical example so that we can be able to walk our investors through it.
Yeah. So as far as
This is for all funds, how management fees work,
okay.
and then the exit fee.
So how management fee works is all our funds have 1.6% management fee, with the exception of iDollar and the ETF. So the rest of the funds charge 1.6%. How it works is that's an annual fee. So we charge that on a daily basis, right? So we take that 1.6% divided by 365 and charge that on a daily basis, depending on the assets that we're holding on that day's closing value, right? So say, for example, the fund's value is 10 billion. We will take 1.6 divided by 365 and multiply that by the total 10 billion that is the assets under management. So that's how it's prorated over a whole year's time.
Yeah, and then, for example, if someone wants to withdraw 500,000,
Yeah.
how exactly is the 1% calculated?
Okay, so say for example you want to withdraw, say you came into a fund when the price was 100 shillings, right? So the fund then is continuously growing at a certain pace, right? And let's say by the time you want to withdraw, the fund's price, the unit price that you bought it at, is now 200 shillings, right? So we would charge the exit fee would be 1% of that 200 unit price, which means if you take 1% of that 200 unit price, that would be 2 shillings. So what your take home would be is we would take that 200 minus the 2 shillings, and you would get 198 shillings for every unit that you've bought.
Okay. Thank you, Azan, for the quick math. I hope we were all able to follow up, but please do ask in case you need clarification on something. We also have another question with regards to account opening. Can you open an account if you are under the age of 18 years? So at iTrust, we have 4 different accounts. We have individual accounts, we have minor accounts, we have corporate accounts, and we also have joint accounts. So it is possible for a parent, a guardian, to open a minor account under their individual account. So we do encourage parents, guardians who would like to start off their kids or their children under their care towards their investment journey early on. We do welcome that, and it is possible for minors to have accounts and to start investing. I think I'll bombard you, Frank, on this one. Upon the ETF listing on next week, what will the price cap limit be? Will it fall in the 2%, 5%, or 15% per DSE price cap limit rules?
So as per the DSE rules, that was revised last year. The price will fluctuate 5% up or down depending on the net asset value of the fund. So the current rules that are currently existing on the ETF, that is what will apply to the ETF that when it will be listed on 20.
Okay, thank you. Staying with you, Frank, we have people who would like to move to iTrust as their broker. Can you walk them through the different stages, what they'll be required to do? We understand they'll first need to onboard as an iTrust client. What else will they need to do if they're moving from one broker to another?
So the first part is getting on board with iTrust as a client. Once that has been done, there's a specific form that will share it with you. It will have to be signed by the broker that you're moving from and brought to us, and then we'll finalize the process of moving your holdings from your previous broker to iTrust.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, just a reminder, we would like to let you know that we did a systems upgrade recently. So at the moment, we are opening it up to different countries. So please be patient with us for our clients that are outside Tanzania. The portal will be open to you and you will be able to access it. In the meantime, we do welcome you to email us at customer service at itrust.co.tz or give us a call and we will respond to you. And I would also like to welcome, in case there's any client who had been unable to reach us, we are getting a huge influx of phone calls. Please do share your customer number, name, customer number, and phone number, and we will reach out to you within the next 24 hours. Okay. Okay. There is a question, you're not listed as part of the brokers in the DSE. When will you be available in the DSE? Unless Frank, correct me if I'm wrong, but we are in the DSE and we are trading. We have clients who choose us as their brokers. If you're having trouble finding us, please do let us know. Get in touch with us and we will assist you on that. We have a question. The Iman Fund invests in sukuks. Can you break down what exactly a sukuk is?
Yeah, so a sukuk essentially is how a bond is structured. I think Frank would probably guide you better with how sukuks are structured. Essentially, it is a bond, but it adheres to Islamic principles. I think Frank can guide you better on that.
I think
So,
hi. I think I'll help you guys on this one. Basically, sukuk are kinds of bonds that are structured through Sharia compliance methodology. So we have had a couple of sukuks listed in our market. One of them was the Zanzibar government sukuk, which was a very huge sukuk last year. It raised about 378 billion, which was anchored on asset-backed financing. And the government of Zanzibar was borrowing for the purpose of infrastructure development. Al Baraka Bank also, which is Al Baraka Banking Unit, which is part of CIDB, the Sharia compliant banking unit of CIDB, also raised a Al Baraka Sukuk bond last year. The other Sukuk bonds that have been issued, some of them have even matured last year. KCB's Sukuk matured in December 2025. So they are structured basically along the lines of Sharia principles, which means that there is an element of collaboration between the capital suppliers and the capital users, and there is a profit sharing between them structured into the bond itself. So sukuks are bonds that are designed in a different way than the normal conventional bond most investors are used to. So that's if I can make it a high level differences between the two.
Okay, thank you, Prof. And just to remind our clients, as Faith mentioned, iTrust was the first company to bring sukuks here in Tanzania. So we are pioneers when it comes to that. We have a question. What if the previous broker takes much time to fill the LDM form, I believe? and I'm in a hurry to shift. Is there any help? Frank, can you advise these clients on what are the options if they're having trouble with their previous brokers? After they're on board with iTrust, how can they shift their holdings and what support can we offer them?
So there's a form, as I said earlier, that will have to be completed, signed by the broker that they are moving to and brought to us, and then we will be able to facilitate moving their holdings from whatever they're moving to iTrust.
Okay. Is it possible for them to use the same CDS with their previous broker, but also start their holdings
Yes.
at iTrust?
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
Use the same CDS, it will be linked to us.
Okay. So in the meantime, while they're processing that, it's possible for them to start purchasing more shares and investments using that same
Yeah.
CDS. Thank you. Okay, thank you. We encourage you to please keep sharing your questions.
There
Yeah.
was one question I just read. This is Benjamin. He was asking about if we had stopped providing brokerage service via the DSE MTP app. I think this issue has already been solved. We never stopped providing brokerage service, just to clarify that. We are on MTP. Yes, we did have some technical issues to be on MTP at that period, but I think that has already been resolved. And yeah, you can actually you can buy now the shares through the MTP portal of DSE and through our portals as well.
Thank you, Faith. Someone wants to clarify, all funds are based on units and not cash amounts. Can you clarify how the cash is translated to units and how that works vice versa, please?
Correct. So essentially how a mutual fund works is you're buying a unit at a particular price, right? So let's say you come into the fund when it was during the IPO, right? And it was 100 shillings per unit. So if you invest 100,000, that 100,000 is divided by the unit price, which is 100 shillings. And that's how you're allotted number of units. So when the price is appreciating, when say the price during the IPO was 100 and later on it's 110, essentially you have the same number of units, but it's multiplied by a higher price. So that's how you realize your gain. That's how any mutual fund works. When you come in, you buy in at a certain price, and as the price appreciates, that's how you realize your returns as well.
Thank you. Staying on the cash and units, we have a question asking, since you had targeted amount of capital, or rather since the targeted amount of capital you wanted to raise during the iTrust EAC large cap ETF IPO, since we exceeded that, does it mean that the calculation of value of the 1,000 will be recalculated using the capital raised, or will the value remain 1,000?
So the value remains 1,000. What changes is the number of units that we're going to be allotting, right? If we raise 10 billion, we would have allotted 10 million units. But now, because we raised more money, we're going to be allotting more units, right? But the price will still remain 1,000. So that initial offering that you got of one unit of 1,000 will still remain the same.
Sure. Thank you. And we have, since we actually have you, Prof, maybe I might direct this question to you. This ETF is the first of its kind in Tanzania, actually in East Africa. Why is this the case? And why have you guys decided to do it now?
Yeah, I think there are a couple of reasons why it happened to be the first cross-border ETF in East Africa. And I think that has to do with the difficulties, before 2016, for example, Tanzanians couldn't invest in capital markets in East Africa. Before 2021, we couldn't invest maybe in other countries outside East Africa, let's say SADC countries. So there was a bit of a historical innovation. What I want to say is that iTrust itself, in terms of its funds, is not that old. The public funds, the 5 unit trust funds, started in December 2023. So that means they're just barely, December 2024. So they're just 1 year, 2 months old. And so the ETF just came in within 1 year later, within 8 months later. So I don't think that we are late. I think we're actually quite fast to have an ETF being listed. And this is not even the first ETF on the DSC. It's a second ETF. There is another local stocks ETF listed on the Dar es Salaam Stock Exchange. So these are the products that are coming up in East Africa. There is a couple of ETFs cross-listed in Nairobi, for example. So I think this is early stage, just like we pioneered, for example, the Sukuk market in Tanzania. We are pioneering regional investing. And that's one of the things that iTrust does. So the difficulties are many. I mean, I would not say that they are not there. Exchange rates, cross-border trading, cross-border custody, brokers, all of those issues are issues we needed to solve before we could offer investors a regional ETF.
Thank you, Prof. I would just like to remind the people who unfortunately joined a bit late, this session is recorded and you will be able to view it on YouTube. However, we also have a Swahili session at 5. So if you would like, you can also join that session and get to know the performance on the funds. Okay, Azan, numbers. How do you calculate the daily NAV?
So the daily NAV is calculated on so it takes essentially how the NAV is calculated is takes all the assets of the fund and it reduces all the liabilities of the fund. At the end of the day, you get a net asset value, right? And then depending on how many units are outstanding, all the units that were issued, you take that total net asset value and you divide it over the total number of units that are outstanding, which is how you get that one single price that you're seeing on a daily basis, right? So when you're seeing that 156, it's essentially all the assets of the fund divided by all the units that have been allotted to all the investors. So that is your true value. That's the underlying value of the asset that you hold.
Thank you. We have a question. Can I withdraw money at any time at iGrowth Fund? Just a reminder, these funds are open-ended, so you can withdraw at any time for, as Azan had mentioned, except for iDollar and iCash. All the other funds have a 1% exit fee, so you are welcome to withdraw at any time. There's a T+3 days when it comes to settlement when you redeem. So please keep that in mind. We have a few more minutes to go. I would just like to remind you the Swahili session is on the same link. So we will take a brief 5-minute break before 5, and then we will continue, or rather we'll start the Swahili session. So just stay on the same link, or rather the same connection that you're on right now, and you'll be able to join or rather to take part in the Swahili session. So we have what's the iDollar and iCash exit fee? iDollar and iCash do not have an exit fee. Maybe Azan, you can explain why the other funds have exit fees and why iDollar and iCash do not have exit fees.
So essentially, the other funds are tailored towards longer term investments. So when we're saying we invest in 20-year bonds and 25-year bonds, they're essentially more difficult to sell and they have costs that are incurred for liquidity purposes, right? Because if someone has to exit and we have to sell a bond, that means the rest of the investors would feel a burden of those costs that are incurred for selling that bond, right? So essentially, in order to compensate for the rest of the investors, that's the reason we charge the exit fee, right? So this fee essentially compensates the rest of the investors. So the rest of you who are still remaining in the fund do not feel the burden of that 1% exiting. iCash and iDollar are more tailored towards shorter investments. So there's more constant cash flows moving in and out, right? Which is the reason that iDollar and iCash do not have an exit fee.
Thank you, Ozan. We have a few more questions. In a layman language, if I invest 10 million, price appreciate or depreciate, based on how iTrust works, how much shall I expect at the end of the year? Use both best and worst case scenario. Azan, I know I'm putting you
Okay.
on the spot, but we do have a lot of people, or rather a lot of investors who are actually interested in knowing that I have this amount, how much will I get? Can we actually guarantee that?
No.
Well,
Actually, it's a very simple. I think these are investments, and investments do have element of volatility, prices rising or falling, and that means that you are going to get the returns that are generated. Now, some obviously have higher volatility than others. For example, funds that invest in short-term fixed income assets have barely any volatility. They just accrue the returns to maturity. That's like iCash and iDollar. And then funds that have bonds also accrue most of the time. Few times they may have to exit or add in more bonds, but they are also very, very low volatility, positive gaining, accruing funds, because they don't usually trade as much in terms of their bonds, so they don't get market risk. But balanced funds have equities. Equities are volatile, and equities do have a certain amount of volatility. We do not know what the market is going to do in the future, and so investors who invest in them are advised to read the prospectus and get financial advice, and invest with the understanding of the risk factors involved in their investments, and allocate and diversify enough to protect their capital holdings. So we can't tell you what the returns are going to be. These are not fixed returns. These are not guaranteed returns. They are subject to market risk.
Thank you very much, Prof. Before we wrap up the call, let me just share my screen. And
If you don't mind, Winnie, can I
Yes,
please answer a few questions in here, just
Yes,
very
please.
quickly? There was a question about what equities iGrowth holds. We usually don't disclose those except in a regulatory manner, where we are required to report them in a certain period of time. But we do invest in the highest blue chips performing stocks on the DSC. There was an issue around the market cap on the, can you go over the NAV? Yes, the ETF is subject to market forces. So there could be differences, premiums or discounts. But obviously we will like those premiums or discounts to be within reasonable ranges. And as the market makers, we may be bringing in ETFs either on the buy side or sell side to manage that. There was a question on the extending of the IPO. The IPO has been closed a long time ago. The ETF will start trading in the market. So soon you don't need the IPO anymore. You'll be able to buy it in the market. There was a question around first day of trading, whether there are price limits. I think these are subject to DSC rules. Usually first day, maybe there's a price discovery. So we will see how it will react on the listing date, which is next week, Wednesday, the 28th. There was also a question around, how do we cope with economic volatility? Economic volatility, obviously, is systemic risk, right? Economic meaning overall, the country risk, macro risk. And those are things that all equities and investors in those particular economies are subject to: GDP growth, inflation, exchange rates. And those, I think, every investor assumes those risks as part of investing process. So we will cope with them as investors. And then there was a question around why Tanga and Vodacom were included. They recorded losses in the last 5 years. Mainly they have declined earnings. Well, actually, Vodacom as the stock may have been down, but I don't think they had any losses. Tanga had a few years of losses, but both of these have restructured, turnaround. As you know, Tanga was acquired. After acquisition, the acquisition price was much higher than at that time the market price, and then it moved on to doing rights issues, capitalization. It paid off its foreign debt. So there's been a lot of changes, and we believe there is a lot of value from the turnaround, and that is the reason why you see it. Vodacom also, there was a time it was trading at half its former IPO price, but today it's trading above its former IPO price. It has really gone up in the last 6 months to 1 year. And those are really been quite performing stocks on the Dar es Salaam Stock Exchange. So they are actually, and Vodacom is the largest telco company. It has M-Pesa, the largest mobile money in the economy. and participating in it is very important for any investor to capture the growth of the Tanzanian economy. I think with that, I've answered a few of the extra questions. We can proceed, Wayne.
All right. That being said, we would like to wrap up the English session. Before I invite Faith to close, I would just like to remind you that we have the Kiswahili session coming up. Please stay on the same link if you would like to proceed with that. Yes, that being said, Faith, welcome.
Thank you, Vinny. Before we close this English session, just a couple of questions I saw generically. There were a lot of similar questions in the likes of how do you redeem, how do you kind of onboard yourself, how can we assist in terms of proof of payments, how the wallet functions. So these are obviously a lot of teething and basic issues in terms of our app platforms and the communication with iTrust. So just to give you guys a gist, please bear with us. We have a lot of influx obviously coming in. Bear with us, but do drop your telephone number, email address, so we can contact you back and kind of sort out all your issues. It's pretty straightforward in terms of the portal and the app to log on, right? Sometimes you will get some kind of pushback probably on your KYC notification. It might take a bit longer because, mind you, we are integrated with the NIDA, so there's sometimes a lag between these entities. So bear with us. We will do a manual process and get you onboarded and assist you as much as we can. Once again, I would like to thank every one of you for joining this call. I know you guys have more questions. Please feel free to email us, contact us, get in touch with us. We would love to assist you and take you forward. Yeah. Once again, thank you so much, and thank you investing with iTrust.